I do believe that there's certain things out here that are allowed that we've been told that are haram.
The rules weren't the important part. Making dua, thanking Allah, that is the important part. Believing the oneness of Allah and worshiping Him. That's it.
Islam is not just like a strict set of guidelines, right? Like it's a lifestyle. Islam in general, right? Like what's haram is generally black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, no, I think it's a little bit, there is a gray area. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about it too. I was like, this guy's actually kind of right, because I think a lot of what we know comes down to interpretation.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah,
let's
so
say
true.
you read something, right? I might interpret it differently. Taha's going to interpret it differently. You might interpret it. So
Right.
there is kind of like a gray area. So that's just like, okay, yeah, he was right. But something else I do want to point out too, something that I remember that my uncle told me was that there is a lot of information and knowledge out there. The problem is it's like deep into these like really it's all in literature, right? In Arabic literature. So like maybe if the answers are out there, like they're not really accessible to us in that sense because we wouldn't even understand it.
Well, I get that, but they're not like they're accessible for all those scholars, right?
Yeah.
And you see like these scholars are debating amongst themselves on halal or like
Yeah. That's huge.
It's a scholar for it's been for years. You know, like it's just there's so many like arguments in Islam. There's so many like flip-flop. Like we talked about chai, how tea and coffee used to be haram and now it's halal. Like there's been so many times where stuff has been thought to be haram and now it's halal.
After the Quran, the scholars had decreed that this caffeine would be haram.
You know, like Sahabas went to war debating on the Quran.
Yeah.
So like it's even as back then there was different interpretations.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And that's it. Like think about it. I didn't really know about the Sahabas going into war for like debates with the Quran, but really think about that, bro. Like in the end, who is right? In Allah's eyes. It doesn't necessarily matter who's right in the worldly aspect of it. Screw that. It's only matter in Akhirah, right? Because people died at war, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
So if people are able to be in such disagreements with each other that they go to war and they kill Muslim family for it, and it's still in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes, both had pure intentions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees possible Jannah for them, it almost opens endless amounts of doors to people when they're looking for answers.
But here's the thing too. They have to also go look for the answers, right? Yeah, and another thing is like you might not, it's just kind of like, you might not find the answer to what you're looking for sometimes in certain situations. Yeah. And you just have to believe like that's also Allah's wisdom too.
But in general, if something is not haram, it's halal. If something is not, like, if we're not forbade something, it's halal. Like, the default version for everything is halal. And then there's things that are haram. It's not the opposite. Sometimes we treat it as the opposite. Like, unless we have proof that it's okay. That's the thing. Like, if you can't find any answer from it and it's not harmful, like, it's a multifaceted question, right? First, you look at it from an Islamic perspective. If that, you don't see harm in it, you don't find any faults, then you look at it from a mankind perspective. Is it good for human beings? Is it bad for human? Is it good for,
are you harming anybody?
Yep. And then it's to you, is this particular thing good for you? Is it going to take you closer to Allah or farther away from Allah?
Yeah.
And that's why I think like there's a huge gray area.
Yeah.
So I think it's a 3-part question whenever you're trying to determine what's halal and haram.
No, yeah, you're completely right about that.
So like my question is kind of like, who makes the rules? Like this is an open. I don't have any opinion on this right now. I've just thought of this right now. So.
Yeah.
Who makes the rules? Is it just the scholars? And of course, a layman can't make any type of rulings for himself. He can't just say, no, I think it's okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have any knowledge, he can't come from any place, right? So people who do extensive knowledge are considered scholars.
Yeah.
People who have a lot of knowledge in the Quran and Hadith, they can have an opinion too, right? Mm-hmm. But
it's not like a one-man thing, right? It's
that's
like,
what I don't
because
think.
Like, for example, with certain like controversial issues, right? Like they will have like the scholars, the sheikh of like, let's say Houston, they'll all get together, hold a conference and talk about certain issues and go through it like that. So it's not just like one sheikh said this, another sheikh said that, Because
I also do believe that the possibility of certain things that are not specifically mentioned in the Quran being haram, I do believe that there's certain things out here that are allowed that we've been told that are haram due to just safety precautions or just people know we're going to misuse it or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily one answer to haram or halal unless it's written in the Quran specifically.
Yeah.
I know for like, America, there's like a FIG Council of North America that meets a few times a year and discusses all these controversial topics. Like, I remember this last time around, I think the big thing was Bitcoin. Made no sense to me. They said it's haram. There's no asset behind Bitcoin that's tangible. And I'm like, all right, what the hell does the US dollar have? What tangible asset does the US dollar have? Nothing. And they say, well, the US dollar is haram too.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
They said the US dollar is haram too. But you live in a country where it's required, so it's acceptable. But you going out and buying Bitcoin, that's not a need, which is why it's haram.
See, I feel like that just falls down to personal opinion
Yeah.
of a people who are obviously aged men who kind of go based off of what they've learned through their culture a lot. That they've come up with these decisions in their minds. That I'm pretty sure they have pure intention, and may Allah grant them Jannah for sure.
Of course.
I have nothing against them.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need to all be like all Muslims in the world need to be a little bit open-minded about this and understand that they are speaking from their opinion, not necessarily fact. And they're doing the best that they can to find an answer. But for sure, I do believe that culture does play a huge part in all of this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, how you live your life generally, right? What you consider halal and haram, like culture, tradition, that makes a huge deal.
Yeah. And I feel like because these scholars are run by cultural people, the normal layman Muslim who doesn't necessarily have any knowledge but would like to practice Islam, it makes it very difficult for this person to practice Islam when they think that, oh, Islam is something super strict.
Yeah.
Yeah, look how you're dressed. MashaAllah, the muscle popping out, everything, alhamdulillah. You're not wearing a thobe.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing shalwar kameez.
Yeah.
I have this funny mustache going on. We don't necessarily look like the people that you would assume would be scholars and everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we're bad Muslims.
Exactly.
It really doesn't. I can 100% say that. Only Allah knows. And,
Yeah.
and I feel like the world needs to be a little more open-minded about that and have a better understanding.
I mean, everybody sins differently, right? So it's just a matter of opinion.
Everyone what?
Everyone sins differently. Sinners judge
Bro,
other sinners for
exactly.
sinning differently.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah. I think another thing, like you brought up earlier too, is that a lot of people see Islam as a restrictive religion.
Oh yeah.
When you don't realize it's more taken from a perspective of it being protecting you, right? Like you think about, oh, Islam, it doesn't let me drink. Okay, let's talk about when you go to a bar, like what are the good things that you see? I mean, you hear so many stories about people who are getting to bar fights, you know, some girl got roofied or something like that, you know, and just it leads to something worse.
Yeah.
So like, is it really restrictive or is it protection?
Subhanallah. Oh man.
I think the biggest thing is one thing that turns away people from Islam is like the dedication it takes. It does take a lot of dedication.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, waking up for Fajr, like, you know,
100%.
praying 5 times a day,
100%.
remembering Allah. But like, the beauty of that is Muslims are still on the path. Like, what's happening to Christians now? Back when I was still in school, getting my MBA, I was in a group of like 7 or 8 people,
Okay.
all Christian backgrounds. I was the only person who believed in God on that table.
And may Allah reward you for that too.
Really?
That's crazy.
Because they did. I mean, think about it, right? Like the whole Christian perspective is so flawed. Oh, just believe Jesus died for your sins and you're good. Like,
Yeah, but then there's like no accountability.
right? There's no kind of so like how do you feel God? Like, I mean, like, think about it. Like, when do you feel close to Allah? When you're in sujood,
Yeah,
right?
when you're doing a
Hands
good
down.
deed.
So when these guys aren't praying, how do they feel that closer to Allah? They
Yeah.
don't. And then it fades, and then they feel closer to the dunya.
Yeah.
So beautiful. The protection. I love that.
No, because I used to, well, like maybe like a few years ago, I used to always think like in terms of like giving da'wah to people, or like how do you inspire like the next generation of kids, right? Like how do you look at a non-Muslim kid, 15-year-old kid, and be like, yo, come through to Islam, bro. You know what I mean?
It sounds like a joke. We're laughing about it. Think about that.
No, but like, you know what I mean? But then because he's gonna be like, but then you tell him you can't drink, you can't do this, you can't date, you can't do this. He's gonna be like, why would I come?
Bro.
But then that's where it comes in from. Like, you have to understand too, bro, like Islam is not like just like a strict set of guidelines, right? Like it's a lifestyle. And at the end of the day, like you're still your own person, right? Like you have the choice to go do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we know what the rules are. Just make sure you do your research, you understand what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And then you go from there.
100%. Yeah, I watched this lecture where a guy, a convert, he said that 3% of the Quran is you can and cannot do this.
Yeah.
Is law, basically.
Yeah.
3%. The rest, 97%, is finding oneself, having a relationship with God, having a good lifestyle in a sense where you're just always happy and in bliss. But I think people only focus on the fact that it's laws. Don't do this, don't do that.
Because I mean that's what gets like social media and things like that, right? Like it's kind of like the same thing where like good news travels fast, bad news travels faster.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the whole time Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in Makkah, was it 12 years, I believe? All he did was preach the oneness of Allah. No rules, no nothing. Those rules came in Medina. So the first 10, 12 years was just about the oneness of Allah, and that shows that like the rules weren't the important part. Like if you're preaching, are you bringing people to Allah? That means, dude, like the oneness of Allah is the important part.
Yeah, 100%.
Making dua, like thanking Allah, that is the important part. These other rules, like you shouldn't do them, but they don't take you away from the full of Islam. Like, Islam is believing the oneness of Allah and worshiping Him.
Exactly.
And that's it. Thank you, bro.